you mentioned about the publishing and how that, especially for Mr. Whitaker, is huge with sheet music, which
That's
is,
right.
you know, I would have never thought of.
You and me both. I had no idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess can you tell us a little bit about your experience with kind of the publishing side of the music industry and what you've learned and, you know, learned to do and what not to do, especially as managing and...
Well, sheet music, I mean, side is fascinating to me because I knew nothing about it. As far as really the economics of it and just the pure numbers. People make a lot of money through sheet music, as it turns out. Many of them are still alive, in fact, and most of them you've never heard of, you know. So people who basically create music for high schools and college ensembles, and they know what they're looking for, and you know they write these pieces that I guess you know allows certain directors to go through the checklist and say, this is a piece that'll help our ensemble, you know, do what they need to do, and hopefully it sounds beautiful as well too, right? And it's a huge, huge business. Like I said with Eric, he started early on just kind of as a fluke, wrote this piece, it got heard at a festival, someone asked him to publish it. They asked for a few more pieces of his, and then he wrote a band piece and nobody wanted it, and he self-published that. And that's when the light went off in his head that, you know, instead of making 8 cents on the dollar, he could make 80 cents on the dollar if he did it himself. And that's what he continued to do for the most part, and that's why he's done very well for himself on that end. So it's an incredible business, and you know we look at it though too. I mean, you know, talking about from the pop side of things, I look at a piece of sheet music and it's like, okay, there's the cover, and it's blank inside, and you've got the music, and it's blank on the back. It's like, you know, shouldn't there be like a commercial or something on there? It's a bunch of billboard space on there we could be selling, you know, for something. But we'll get there maybe eventually. I don't know, but it's just an interesting, fascinating business, and the fact that it's you know people can make as many Xeroxes as they want, but it's you know relative to CDs, it's you know it's pretty steady income in the sense that people are going to replace this from year to year whenever it wears out, and that you know every couple of years there's a whole new set of students that come in that they need to buy music for. So if you have some pieces that are part of the standard rep, you can do very well for yourself.
Yeah.
So that's the sheet music side of things, and then in publishing. It's, you know, with the business in general just changing very quickly, and I think ultimately for the better. You know, we've I think found ourselves in the last 5 or 10 years in this gray area where things are getting worse for the major labels, and there hasn't been any upside to the independent artist. Right. So they've been caught in the middle of this bloodbath. But now the tools, or more and more tools exist now, and it just seems like nowadays it seems like every 3 to 6 months you see some new cool application that's a great way to promote yourself or to sell music or whatever it is. That artists are becoming more and more empowered. So when it comes to publishing, it's just that much more important to hang on to your publishing. Right. It really is. Some publishers can do certain things for you, you know. It's not necessarily going to be in the contract, so you know you kind of have to rely on certain things. If you can get in the contract, that's the best thing. There's also more creative publishing deals out there that are more what you would call standard administration deals, where they're really just going out and collecting money from you. And eventually, hopefully, there'll be a reversion clause where it'll come back to you after X number of years, and you can renegotiate at a certain point in time. And then what's really popular now are they're kind of admin deals, admin plus deals, where they're basically administration deals, but if they go out and get some sync work for you, if they were to actually get something placed in film or TV or a video game or something, then their percentage gets bumped up, and they get a piece of the upfront fee and that sort of thing. So I think you start seeing that becoming more and more standard, actually. But yeah, there's no, you know, I don't know. If you're going to take an advance for a publishing deal, I would say only do so if you have absolutely no confidence in your career. You know, I mean, you're basically just, you know, giving it away. It's really tough. It's a tough pill to swallow a couple years down the line. Yeah. Once you really realize what you've done. You know, that's not to say that there can't be good situations with that, but you know, my first advice would be, don't do it. Do it as much, take it as far as you can by yourself, and then at least put yourself in a better negotiating position.
Right.
But once you give it away, you can never get it back.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you find yourself ever kind of, you mentioned contracts and reading over any kind of contracts, and where you come into that with any kind of management that you've done as far as like publishing deals, or and I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah.
So how do you pick that out, and how do you, negotiate something like that?
Well, you have to be in a position to negotiate. The first band I worked with, we frankly were in no position to negotiate. But fortunately, because we knew people who worked at the publishing company, we got a decent deal. I mean, it was a co-publishing deal, so which was, at that time in the early 90s, fairly typical. You basically gave up half the publishing, and the idea, so the artist basically retained 75% of the pie, right, and the 100% pie. And publishers still, back then, you could kind of rely on them to actually get some usages for the music. This particular publisher was Chrysalis Music, who's still an independent publisher. And they did a fair job as far as getting the music out there and getting some placements for us. But, if you were to do the math and look at the advance that we got versus the money that they made, I mean, there's no comparison. They made out like bandits,
Yeah.
which is why they're in the business they're in,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so being a publisher is not such a bad idea, I guess.
That's where the money is.
That's where the money is.
Everyone's been told.
Yeah.